सहना ववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः। स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ओम शांति शांति शांति। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। Salutations to all of you. We have been exploring the topic of peace. Give me a Xerox. Here. Peace of mind, we saw how we can invoke it. On the first day we saw it is the nature of the mind is peace, and if we learn to drop the negatives, the agitation, we attain that peace of mind. We also saw about how do we learn to drop the fickleness, the restlessness of the mind, the impulsiveness, the strong attachments. So we saw about peace of mind through clarity. Now, peace of mind is a very important step in a spiritual seeker's life. We saw that unless the peace is not there, it is not possible for a person even to contemplate steadily. Spiritual growth happens only when there is peace. So our great rishis not only gave us different methods of how to attain peace of mind, but they said that that is not enough, because however great the efforts we may put in and attain the peace of mind, whatever we put in through effort will be temporary. So the peace of mind will be relative. For some time we will feel peaceful, again the mind will get disturbed. Again we have to put some effort, again the mind will become peaceful, again it will become disturbed. So this will go on. The nature of the mind is like that. It is a flow, as we saw. And various situations, various internal factors are also there, because of which the peace of mind also gets disturbed. And so peace of mind is temporary. What we actually seek is the peace of the self, which is our true nature. So on the first day we spoke about it, that Manas Shanti and Atma Shanti. Manas Shanti is that which we call as peace of mind. Atma Shanti is peace as my true nature, which is beyond the mind, which always is. Whether the mind is disturbed or mind is peaceful, that nature of ours is not affected. This is what Vedanta declares to us. And every night we experience that when we go into the state of deep sleep, beyond the state of dream, where we have no disturbance, no thoughts. I still am, and I am very peaceful. Till we come to Vedanta, we don't even realize sometimes that there is a state called Sushupti or deep sleep. We only know Jagrat and swapna, waking and dream. In the waking state, the mind is active, the mind goes out through the senses, does the transactions with the world. In the dream state, mind projects its own dreams, projects its own world based on the impressions collected through the waking. Buddhi is not active in that. The intellect, the deciding, discriminative factor is not active in the dream. So we have random projection happening. So if you see a Panditji doing puja and you see somebody doing Bharatnatyam, in the dream you may have Panditji doing Bharatnatyam. Some random mixture will come. And how strange it is, people do dream analysis. To predict their future, they do dream analysis, which is where there is no intellect, random combination of some emotion, some thought, some picture, some desires, all that is coming up and it is being thrown out, so that the mind becomes ready for the next day to again collect the impressions. It is a random throwing out. One doesn't need to do any dream analysis, according to Vedanta. In the waking state, if I am able to be decisive, form, and live my life accordingly, that's enough to create my future. Somewhere I read very nicely, destiny is not in the lines of your hand, it is in the grasp of your palms. How you grasp the present today will determine the future. It is nothing to do with any lines here and some dream state and then analyze. So in the waking, the mind is there. In the dream, the mind is there. But in the state of deep sleep, there is no mind. And yet I am. So earlier our thinking is that I think, so I am. Because I don't know my existence apart from thought. But Vedanta says no, there is a state of deep sleep where you exist even beyond thought. That is your true nature. Mind is a tool, it's an equipment. Like the body is a tool through which I experience this world outside. Mind is a tool through which I experience emotions. Buddhi is a tool with which I experience thoughts. But who am I? That I which uses body, mind, intellect is very different. That is what enlivens the body, mind, intellect. That is what we call as Atma, the soul, the truth, whatever we want to give the name as. Reality, God, different words. So that nature of ours is unaffected by whatever happens to body, mind, intellect. For example, when there is a movie, everyone sits and they watch the movie very nicely. Now the projection is happening on the screen. No matter what is projected on the screen, at the end of the movie, the screen remains white. Before the movie, the screen was white. Even while the movie is going on, there may be a very romantic scene or there may be a very violent scene. The screen is untouched by it. So the screen remains white all the time. In the same way, whether the mind is disturbed or the mind is not disturbed, our true nature as peace, as Shanti, Atma Shanti, that never gets affected. But we recognize that true nature of ours only when we have Manas Shanti. When the mind is calm, then we can recognize that nature of ours. Till then we are not able to recognize because we are trapped in our own agitations. Hence, our great rishis, they said that it is not enough to just experience some peace of mind because that is temporary. No doubt it's a very important step, important stage in one's evolution where I can make my mind quiet at will. But that is not the goal of life. That is not the ultimate state. Because that comes and goes. And whatever comes and goes is not actually what we seek. We are seeking that which is permanent. And hence that state is an absolute state, which is a state of the self, the Atma. And to know that state is to attain that peace, having attained which one will never get disturbed, no matter what happens at the body, mind, intellect level. That is what Jesus said in his Bible when he said, peace that passeth all understanding. That peace remains even in the midst of conflict. That peace remains even in the most disturbing situation. Even if the mind is absolutely impure, even the worst sinner, the nature of that person is peace. And the saint, the nature of that person is also peace. Only difference between both of them is the mind of the saint is purified, so the person is able to be aware of that self as my nature is peace. And the mind of the sinner is disturbed, so one is not able to know that. So peace of mind is something which one can attain, and one should not stop there. One should strive to know that self, as the Upanishad said, Atmava are shrotavyaha, drashtavyaha, mantavyaha, nididhyasitavyaha. That, oh man, having got this human birth, come to recognize that self, that what is that in me which remains untouched by whatever happens. In all of us there is that presence. To know that self is Atma Shanti. There's a nice book called Ashtavakra Gita, where Ashtavakra Muni is the guru of Janak Maharaj. It's a very, very advanced text, because Janak Maharaj is a highly dispassionate seeker who goes and asks Ashtavakra Muni that what is knowledge, what is vairagya, and how to attain moksha. So in that Ashtavakra Gita, Ashtavakra Muni gives a very nice slok. He says, Aprayatnad prayatnadva mudho na apnoti naishtikim. Neither by struggling nor by not struggling will one attain peace. If you struggle for peace, you will not attain peace. As we saw, we don't have to do anything to become peaceful. All that we have to do is drop the agitations. So last 3 days we have been seeing that, how to drop attachment, how to drop our insistence, and how to drop the strong likes and dislikes, how to drop kama, krodha, lobha, drop. Like we don't have to struggle to create silence. We have to stop agitation. So neither by struggling. So if you say, okay, then I will not struggle, I will not do anything. Can we remain in that state of not doing anything? If I don't struggle, I fall into sloth, slumber, laziness. So he says neither by struggling, because even after struggling, let us say even if I struggle to drop all these, what I will attain is temporary state of peace. Because everything is limited by time and it will change. It will not remain all the time. So even if I struggle and I attain peace of mind for some time, like all of us may do in meditation, we sit quietly and slowly we withdraw. Mind becomes peaceful. For how long? Few moments. And by practice you can elongate it for few more minutes, then for hours. Even if you attain the state of samadhi where the mind becomes completely absorbed, the moment one comes out of the state of samadhi, one is again back to the same thing. It is said that the last thought with which you sleep is the first thought with which you wake up. So what has happened? The mind has temporarily become quiet and again it has come up. It has become temporarily dormant. Again it comes up. So even if I struggle and attain that state, I will only get that peace for some time. So he says neither by struggling nor by not struggling will you attain that permanent peace. Naishthiki means permanent peace, not relative peace. Aprayatnat prayatnatva mudho na apnoti naishthiki. Then how will you know that peace? Tattva nishchaya matrena prajño bhavati dhimatam. Only by determining the nature of your self, tattva nishchaya. That what is the essence of my own personality? What is that which is always present, whether the body, mind, intellect are there or not there? that absolute truth, one who determines it and knows that truth, that person attains that supreme peace which can never be disturbed, and that person is a free person after that. Nothing binds that person. So this nature of ours as the self is what we have to determine. Now how do we know that nature of our own self? Tattva Nishchaya has to be done. That's why it is said, Tyage naike amritatva manashuhu. Only by dropping, one will attain that. So even to attain peace of mind, we have to drop. Raga, Dvesha, you drop. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, you drop. Agraha, you drop. And even to attain that supreme peace, I have to drop. Now what do I have to drop for that supreme eternal peace? So in the Gita, there is a nice verse in the second chapter of the Gita, the Sthita Prajna Lakshan. In that he says, Vihaya kaman yas sarvan pumanscharati nispraha nirmamo nirahankaraha sashanti madhigacchati. A very famous shloka. That Vihaya kaman, three things we have to drop. I have to drop Vihaya kaman sarvan. I have to drop all desires. That is very difficult, Swamiji. Some desires you tell us to drop, that itself is difficult. All desires you have to drop, impossible. Vihaya kaman ya sarvan. You drop all the desires and puman charati nispraha, and you walk desireless. Okay, desire to drop, most difficult, almost impossible. What else to drop? Nirmama, drop all attachments. Nirahankara, drop the ego also. Sa shanti madhigacchati. That person will attain peace. Swamiji, listening to this verse, more than Shanti, I have become Ashant now. Because I don't think I can drop all desires, all ego, all attachments. That means I have no hope. It is not that we have to drop all desires while we are living here right now, transacting with the world outside. Yesterday we saw. There is a difference between desire and the need. Needs are what we need, body level. Food, clothing, shelter, some amount of wealth, prosperity, all that one needs. Emotions, you need some love, you need some praise, recognition, basic things. But what the wise person does, because desire by itself is not a problem. What is the problem is my dependency on that desire, that without this I am miserable. So if you see here, there is a cycle of ignorance that has been given to you. Do you have that paper? What we generally think is that when the desire is fulfilled, then I will become happy. So then we chase the desires. Now in this cycle of ignorance, if you see, when we have desires, even one desire is enough, it will create so many thought agitations in the mind. So the desires lead to tremendous amount of thought agitations. Just one desire if you have, that, I must. What desire? I must watch this particular movie, let us say, some desire. Now that one desire is enough, now that will start creating thought disturbance. How will I watch? Where will I watch? What time will I watch? How do I go? With whom do I go? How much money? All that will start. One desire. There's an interesting story that Ramakrishna used to say, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. So he said that there was this eagle which was flying very high, enjoying the freedom. After some time it saw that there are some fish which a person who was fishing has pulled out and kept in a bucket. So the eagle swooped down and caught one fish and went up. The moment that eagle caught the fish and went up, so many crows, they started chasing that eagle. One after the other, so many of them at a time. And the eagle got perplexed because all of them are chasing that eagle. Now 20, 30 crows are chasing that eagle. The eagle goes up, goes right, goes left, goes everywhere. That crows are just hounding that eagle. And they almost come to attack that eagle. And in that fear, that eagle opens the beak and the fish drops. The moment the fish drops, all the crows go to the fish. The eagle is happy. So Ramakrishna used to say that one desire is enough. That one desire can create so many thought agitations, disturb the whole mind. So the desire creates the thought agitations, and when thoughts are there and you sustain the thoughts, they will lead to the action. It will compel me to do something. And when I do something, I will get a result. But that result will be temporary. So now that temporary result will leave an impression in my mind. If it is enjoyable, and I want it more. If it is not enjoyable, the impression is, I don't want it. That is called as a vasana or an impression. So now what happens is, this is the cycle, this is how our personality functions. Based on our vasanas, our impressions, we have desires. All of you are sitting here for satsang. You have those sattvic vasanas, so you are here for satsang. Now those desires you had, that I must learn, I must know what is peace, or I must attain the methods to know peace. Now the desire led you to sustain the thought that okay, such and such time I have to go there. So you are sitting here. If you didn't sustain the thought, you would be sitting somewhere else. So thoughts sustained lead to action. The action will give you result. And you will feel, aha, talks were very nice. And you feel elevated. How long? Till you reach home. Then again it starts. Or you may feel, arey, what a boring talk. Next time I am telling you, these talks are all useless. I am never going into any of this place. I came because my mummy told me to come. Enough now, I am not coming. So if you like the talks, there is a favorable impression. If you don't like the talk, there is an unfavorable impression. And that further creates the desire. This cycle goes on in our life. All the time we are pushed by our own impressions. To understand this, that this is the way this mind works, that temporary results I will get, and with that, if it is favorable, I will get some peace. If it is not favorable, I will get some disturbance. Now this cycle will go on. But why is it that I have to desire? Why is it that I can't be who I am? Why does my happiness have to depend only on the fulfillment of a desire? So when I ask myself that why do I desire, then the question comes up is, what is a desire? Desire is nothing but a sense of incompleteness and a scheme to become complete in future. That is called as a desire. There is a sense of incompleteness that I feel, and now I want to become complete. So if I do this, I will become more happy. If I go there, I will become more happy. If I become this, I will become more happy. So now I am creating desires so that I will become more, I feel more complete about myself. So incompleteness gives rise to desire. Simple example to understand. If I have had a 7-course meal, full, sometimes they have this unlimited lunch buffet. 350 rupees, unlimited. So I have had the appetizer also, and I had 3 bowls of soup also, and then I had nicely every vegetable which is there, 2 to 3 servings of that, and 4-5 servings of the sweet, and then the dessert also, and everything. And I am full to the brim. There is no space, that much I have stuffed myself. At that time, if my most favorite item is brought in front of me, Italian, what you call, lasagna is brought in front of me. Now what will I do? Will there be a desire, come on, let me eat it? You will say, not now, because I have just finished everything, because I am full. When I am full, there is no desire. But after 2 hours, If that is brought in front of me, I'll jump on it. Why? Because now there is some incompleteness. Now I can complete it. So desire arises because of incompleteness. Very few people actually recognize that my problem is not that I need some object. My problem is I feel incomplete. I am miserable not because I didn't get some object. I am miserable because I am feeling incomplete. A seeker is one who recognizes this incompleteness. That my problem is not that my desire did not get fulfilled. My problem is not that somebody else did not give me praise. My problem is nothing else. My sense of incompleteness and emptiness is my problem. Very few people recognize that. That's why they keep searching only peace of mind. And they think that by doing this I will become happy, by going to a Ayurvedic massage, I will get Shanti. You will get, no doubt. For how long? Few moments. Nothing wrong in going. Do it. But we always feel that by doing something I will become more happy. Why? Because I don't know that basic problem I have is a sense of incompleteness. That knowledge is not there. Hence I think that the more richer and richer and richer I become, the more happy I will be. More famous I become, more happy I will be. And there are enough people who are rich, famous. I'm not saying everybody who is rich and famous is unhappy. But still, is there not something missing? Is there not something which is lacking? Do I feel fulfilled that yes, I have done everything that needs to be done, I don't need to do anything more? The Upanishad seeker asks that question. I want to reach that state, having attained which there is nothing more to attain. There is a state like that of complete fulfillment, which you and I experience every night in deep sleep, but we are not aware of it. Hence we think that something else outside will make me complete. Hence the mad chase for things outside. But as it is said, you may be knowing that popular saying, in the world of rat race, even if you win, you still remain a rat, always afraid of the cat hiding below the mat. Is it not true? However great and successful I may be, my sense of incompleteness doesn't go. My sense of finitude doesn't go. I will always have fear and sorrow. So that seeker has inquired very deeply that what is that which is my real problem? My real problem is incompleteness. And that incompleteness comes to me only when I identify falsely with my body, mind and intellect. Is there a sense of incompleteness when I am in the state of deep sleep? No. Because I am not identified with the body, mind, intellect, there is no sense of incompleteness. Is there a sense of incompleteness when I am completely in a state of love? I have risen above this limited individuality. In the fusion of love, individual ego has melted. There's so much of fulfillment in that act of love, in that state of love. Somebody who loves nature, somebody who loves music, Zakir Hussain is playing the tabla and he is lost himself in that. And while playing the tabla, he is shaking his head and his hair are coming down and he is doing whatever. But he is not there. There is no sense of incompleteness there. Because at that point in time, he and music are one. It's over. There is no feeling of incompleteness. Because no identification with body, mind, intellect. At that point in time, he is one with that music. So when I identify falsely with the body, mind, intellect, I feel incomplete. When I feel incomplete, then I have desire. The desires lead me to thoughts, action, result, which further create new desires. Now this cycle goes on. Those of them who recognize that no, the basic problem is not that I have to fulfill desires. Why should my happiness depend on desire at all? Desire will only fulfill that particular demand of mine. But my incompleteness doesn't go away. That's the basic cause. The effect of that is a desire. So if I have a desire to drink coffee, the mind goes coffee, 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 and till I don't get the coffee, my mind is disturbed. Now when I get the coffee, what happens? That desire for coffee has gone. But did my incompleteness go? That didn't go. And typically that happens. One sip of coffee I drink and keep it. After that I continue my work, and after 1 hour I realize, oh, there is one coffee here. Now the dead, cold coffee, then I have to empty it into my stomach. But till that coffee did not come, mind is disturbed. So the sense of incompleteness, one who becomes aware of, also understands that this happens because I am not aware that my nature is fullness, my nature is completeness. So falsely identifying with the body, mind, intellect, I forget who I am. So that ignorance of the self, when I forget that I am of the nature of peace, my nature is consciousness, my nature is truth, my nature is love, my nature is happiness. Different words for the same thing. I forget that, then I falsely identify with the body, become incomplete, feel finite, have desires, and then get attached to them. So the way to attain that absolute peace is to know the self. That ignorance goes only by knowledge. And that knowledge cannot come to me till my mind is disturbed by desires. Think about it. If there is a desire in your mind just now, you get some message on the SMS that such and such person who is the nearest, who is your most beloved, that person is in town and is going to be there only for 2 hours. Now what will happen suddenly? Now the desire will be, I have to meet. Then you can't sit here. Immediately you go. Or some tragedy has happened, some accident has happened. Immediately you rush and you go. Why? Because that's the pull of the desire. So when the desires are there, I can't sit quietly. I can't be. I have to act. My mind will be pushed out. Such a mind cannot contemplate, cannot sit quietly in meditation and drop all false identification and know the self. Hence the Gita says, Vihaya kaman yas sarvan. All the desires one has to drop in the seat of contemplation. And while one is working outside, one doesn't have to drop all desires, but one has to drop dependency on all desires. Because without desire, action cannot happen. If there was no desire for you to gain knowledge, you would not be sitting here. And it is not possible for us to drop all desires and become inactive. That will never happen. So while I am in the state of meditation, I should be able to drop identification with all desires. Okay, right now, nothing, no desires. That will happen only if I have dropped all dependency on desires in my waking state. How will I drop the dependency on desires in the waking state? By understanding clearly that happiness is not because of fulfillment of desires. In fact, happiness is because of dropping desires. When a desire is fulfilled, that desire is dropped. So peace which was already my nature, I experience. Happiness which was already my nature, I experience. So one who understands that very clearly, it is not about intellectualizing. It is about seeing it very clearly. That desire and the process of fulfillment of desire only creates agitation. And when the desire is fulfilled, that agitation has stopped. The moment there is a desire for coffee, mind is disturbed. Coffee, 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 coffee. When I get the coffee, what happens? That desire is quiet. That agitation is quiet. When that agitation is quiet, I experience that happiness and peace which was already my nature. Hence it is said that you don't attain peace by doing something, you attain peace by dropping. So the desires need to be dropped. One can drop desires in various ways. Some of the desires you indulge and you rise above them. Some of the desires you think it out and drop them. Some of the desires you see the painful side of it and drop them. The entire scripture is about that, how to drop. So vihaya kaman yas sarvan. And when I drop these desires, I experience that state of freedom. The mind is very, very peaceful, and with that peaceful mind I can inquire into what is the nature of that self. What is the Atma? How am I not this body, mind, intellect? How I am that absolute self? That inquiry, that contemplation on the truth can be done only by a mind which is peaceful. And hence he says, Vihaya kaman yas sarvan pumans charati nispraha. One may have desires, but one doesn't depend on them. One sees very clearly, my problem is not desire and its fulfillment. My problem is the sense of incompleteness. And let me see how I can rise above identification with body, mind, intellect and come to realize that my nature is completeness. So I don't have to do anything to become complete. I have to drop my false attachment to body, mind, intellect. That's why the second line says, Nirmamo Nirahankara. You drop the minus, drop the attachment. What causes us a lot of sorrow is our attachment. In fact, sorrow is directly proportional to our attachment. The more we are attached, the more is the sorrow. So those who say that Swamiji, detachment is not for us, the householders, detachment is only for those who have renounced the world and for the sannyasi. Is it not that we are wanting happiness? If we want happiness, detachment is inevitable. The greater the detachment, the greater is the happiness. Greater the attachment, greater is the sorrow. There was one person, old man. He had worked very, very hard and built up an entire business and factory and whatnot. One day, when the son returned home, he found the old man crying inconsolably. Miserably he was crying. So the son asked him, what happened, Daddy? Why are you crying? He said, Arey, so many years I have done so much of hard work, so much of my sweat and toil, and I built up this whole factory, and look at this, what the news is saying, that the whole factory has caught fire. Oh my God, I am destroyed, everything is gone now, what to do now? My entire life's effort is gone for a waste. And the son says, Daddy, don't you remember? Just 2 days ago, we have sold it over to somebody. Oh, we've already got the money for it. We have sold it. Oh, then there's no problem. The factory is still burning. But it is not my factory. So I am not miserable now. Why? That's the attachment there. The moment my comes in, there is a problem. It is not the actual event which is creating the problem. So wherever there is attachment, there is misery. And the deepest attachment is to this body, which is called I, Ahankar. Then there is attachment to people, there is attachment to things, attachment to situations. And all these attachments create disturbance. Hence in the Gita it said, Nirmamo, one who drops this attachment, that person becomes free. Even in computer you see, virus comes through attachment only. If you have no attachments, you don't have virus. Why you need attachments? Problem, no? It is nirmama, you drop attachment. Why should we not be attached? Is it not natural? If I love my child, I am very attached to the child. No. In attachment, what is more important is I, and what that object is doing to me, or the person is doing to me. I am more important in attachment. In love, the beloved is more important. So the greater is my detachment, the greater is my love. People think that detachment is disinterestedness. If I am detached, then I will be disinterested. No, if I am detached, I will be more loving. Because detachment is not from the person. Detachment is not stopping to love the person. But detachment is from this I. You drop that possessiveness, you drop that attachment, there you are. How much of love will be generated in the minds? The mother, who is one of the purest examples of love, why do we give that example? Because when the child is very small, the mother has no attachment to the child, no expectation. Out of love, the whole bond is happening. But as the child starts growing up, then the attachments comes in. That is where the pain and sorrow comes after that. Because then there's a sense of possessiveness. There's my child. And why should I share my child with another woman who has just come now, got married, and that son is torn between two of them. Why? Because now attachment has come. Now there is a problem. So the moment there is myness, there is disturbance. In that myness, in that attachment, there is this I who is predominant. Because the equation of attachment is very simple. Gurudev used to give us the equation of attachment. What is attachment? I plus I want is equal to attachment. But I am more important. What I want from that object is more important. What I want from the person is more important. In love, the beloved is more important. So I must learn to be detached from the things that I have so that they don't control me. I use them as just objects. Just think. When there's attachment, if you have bought the latest, what you bought? iPhone 5. You buy the latest iPhone 5 and you use it and you are so thrilled. I have the latest iPhone 5. And you're so attached to it that you can't part from it. You can't. And the first scratch that comes on that iPhone 5 is as though somebody has scratched me. I am so disturbed. Oh God, scratch. And I put a scratch guard also on that screen, and still that scratch came. How did that scratch come? Disturbed. Why? Because so much of identification with that. So in attachment, that object starts controlling me. That's why I don't need to be attached. And in that attachment, I forget myself. That's the problem with attachment. I become so attached to something or some person that I forget my own self. And the most important reason why one should not be attached, especially in a relationship, is when I get attached in a relationship, chances are I destroy myself and I destroy the beloved also. Example, Duryodhan was attached to his son. Did he not become the cause of his own son's death? He might as well said very clearly that no, as a king, what is right is this person, the Pandavas should get the kingdom, half the kingdom at least, or whatever belongs to them, and you should have this. He should have taken that decision very clearly. The war would not have happened only. But he was so attached to his son, he himself became the cause of his own son's destruction. Hence, where the attachment is, there will be misery, there will be sorrow. I will lose my own freedom. And hence the Gita says, Nirmamaha, drop these attachments. When we drop attachments, we will be more loving, more flexible, more open. Once Swami Vivekananda was sitting with Sister Nivedita and they were sitting on the banks of a river. So Vivekananda took some water and after some time he clenched his fist. After some time again he took water and closed his fist. 3 times he did that and he asked Sister Nivedita, what do you learn? She said, you are taking the water and holding it. And then the water is slipping away from your hands. So Vivekananda said, this is the nature of love. The moment you try to become possessive, it will escape. Love goes away. The moment that possessiveness comes, love goes, attachment comes, misery comes. So the greater the detachment, the greater the love, greater the peace, greater the happiness. So he says, Nirmama, drop the attachments. Because attachments will preoccupy my mind. Think about it. When I sit for meditation on the truth, or thinking about a mantra, or thinking about God, why does my mind wander? It will go to the places where it is attached, to the people whom it is attached, to those things to which it is attached. And it starts imagining happiness with those. Or it starts thinking the other way, starts thinking about the dvesha. So mind which is attached again cannot know the absolute truth, again cannot be happy in the world while living. So the Gita says drop the attachment. Nirmama. Especially drop the attachment to the things, because things will remain here only. There was one very, very rich person, his name was Dhuni Chand, very prosperous, a businessman. And he was a devout follower of Guru Nanak Dev. So he used to go attend the satsangs, be with the master. But he was very, very possessive, very attached to his own wealth and everything. And his family members also knew that he is very narrow-minded and very possessive. So one day, when he went to the master, when he was having the satsang, Guru Nanak Dev gave him one needle, one pin. He said, I am giving you one seva to do. You take this pin and you have to preserve this pin. And when I meet you in heaven, you give me this pin. So this man was thrilled. He said, Arre, Guru has given me some work. He said, what a work this is. It's very simple work. That's all. I have to preserve this pin. Over. It's so easy for me. So he went home in so much of joy. And the wife asked him, what happened? He said, today my Guru gave me this work. He said, you take this pin and you preserve it, and when you meet me in heaven, you give it. The wife says, Arre, Buddhu, have you thought about it? How will you take this pin to heaven? You will preserve it here, but how will you take it to heaven? It is then that it struck him that I can't take even a pin with me. What am I being so possessive about? Why am I so attached to all this? And what is the price that I am paying for this? When I am attached to so many things, I can't meditate on the truth. My mind will only go there. In Hindi there is a couplet, I often repeat this. I am telling my own mind also. दुनिया में कमाए क्या हीरे क्या मोती, दुनिया में कमाए क्या हीरे क्या मोती, यारों ये याद रहे कफन में जेब नहीं होती. That we are not taking anything back with us. So now why am I so attached to anything? More I remind myself of this, that Nirmama, let me be only a trustee. Gandhiji used this very often. Trusteeship concept. Today in management they use that. A trustee leader. One style of leadership is trustee leadership. So I am only a trustee. The Lord has trusted me and entrusted all these things to me. For some time it is there with me. Let me use it to the best to serve the people. Let me not get possessive and attached towards it. Same with people. If I am detached from the people, I will be more loving to them. More loving I am, more peaceful I am, more my mind is quiet. And detached from the situations, let things come, take them as they come, leave them as they go. This is the nature of life, is temporary. Happiness comes, sorrow comes, heat comes, cold comes. One by one they will come. Success comes, failure comes. So when I know that very clearly, I am not attached at all. Nirmama means no attachments. No attachment to person, no attachment to situation, no attachment to any things. And no attachment to any result. In the Gita, very nice shloka it is, Yukta karma phalam tyaktva shantim napnoti naishtikim ayukta kama karena sakto nibadhyate. When I am attached to the result, karma phalam, when I am attached to that, this alone I want, nothing else I will settle for. Mind will get anxious, mind will get disturbed. Gita doesn't say don't expect a fruit. Gita says don't insist on the fruit. Please remember that. Karmanyavadhikaraste is not to say that you have no adhikara towards the fruit. Adhikar does not mean right in Sanskrit. Adhikar means qualification. In Sanskrit the word means. I am not qualified to control the action. What is in my control, I am qualified only to act. On the results I have no control. And hence the Gita says, You may expect a result and you work towards it, but you don't insist on the result. Bhagwan Krishna himself expected a result, right? He wanted dharma to be protected. He did not tell Arjun that Arjun, doesn't matter, you just fight, whether you win or you don't win, you just fight. He said to Arjun, no, for the sake of dharma you have to win, you have to fight the war. So there was a particular expectation, but there was no insistence on that, there was no psychological dependence on that. That is what we have to drop. If I get that result, very fine. If I don't get that result, also fine. I accept the result. So the mantra for the detachment from result is expect the result and accept the result. If the result is not up to the mark, maybe I introspect, find out where did I go wrong, improve my performance, all that I can do. But I must accept the result. That acceptance is called prasad. The prasad buddhi, what Gita speaks about. That when I go to a temple, I don't ask for a particular prasad. If the pujari gives vibhuti, I take vibhuti. I don't say, why did you give me vibhuti? Give me that peda. Whatever is given, because it's come from Bhagavan. So this result has come, let me accept. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasyopajayate. Says with prasad buddhi, all the agitations of the mind will go. So when I expect a result and I work hard, I do my best, then I leave the rest. Whatever result comes, I accept. So many people worked hard for this yajna. And the anxiety was there. 5 minutes before the yajna, Swamiji, only 60 people have come. What to do? One crying emoticon was sent on WhatsApp. Only 60 people. And another 10 minutes, 300 people. I did my work to the best of my capacity. I enjoyed the seva that I did, went door to door, did this, did that, called up people, SMS them, everything I have done. If 60 people come, that is prasad from Bhagavan. 300 people come, that is prasad from Bhagavan. My joy is in the seva. Why the 60 people only came? If the yajna continues with only 60 people, let me introspect and find out that what was the reason. Next time, what all we should do. That's the objective way of handling it. So when the results come, I accept them. That is called detachment from the result. I expect a result, I accept the result. So this is the way to become nirmama. So when I have detachment from people, detachment from things, detachment from situations, detachment from result. Detachment from people comes when I love, and the very act of giving love is my fulfillment. Detachment from objects comes when I have the attitude that I am a trustee. Detachment from situations come when I understand that they will come, they will go. I should not be attached to them. And detachment from result comes when I have prasad buddhi and I say expect the result, accept the result. Now comes the last detachment. Nirmama we have seen. Now comes nirahankara. The source of all these attachments, attachment to person, to result, to things and to situations, is my attachment to my own ego, I. That I is more important to me than anything. These all will give me that happiness. I will become more happy. That is why I need all these. So the nirahankara, that ahankar has to be dropped. Now how will ahankar be dropped? So ahankar is dropped only at the altar of love. Where there is pure love, there is no ahankar there. As we saw, if I love my country very much, I will surrender the ego, surrender everything at the altar of my country. If I love my culture, I do that. If I love a person, I love my guru, then I surrender everything to the guru. Whatever the guru says, I follow. There my ego will not come. So the Bhakti Marg is one of the most beautiful paths to surrender the ego. And Bhagavan says that Tameva Sharanam Gacha Sarva Bhavena Bharata Tat Prasadat Param Shantim Sthanam Prapsyasi Shashvatam. You go and seek refuge in that Supreme Lord. Surrender unto Him, saying ki Bhagavan, let thy will be done, not mine. You are the doer, I am only an instrument. I am not the doer. And Bhagavan said that to Arjun, that Arjun, if you think you are the doer and you are going to fight, and by your not fighting they are going to be spared, he says you are mistaken. Rite pitvam na bhavanti sarve. Even if you are not there, they are not going to be spared. Nimitta matram bhavasavya sachin. You just be a nimitta. You are only an instrument. So in that feeling, in that attitude that I am only an instrument, I am not the doer. Bhagavan is the doer. I surrender. Sarva bhavena bharata. Tameva sharanam gacha. So again and again I tell myself, I am not the doer, the Lord is the doer. I am not the doer, the Lord is the doer. Let thy will be done. In that I give up my doership, I give up my ego. What do I experience? Tat prasadat param shantim. Supreme peace. No agitations at all. That person gains the knowledge. Bhagavan says, to such a person, I give the knowledge of oneness with me. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. I give them that knowledge. Those who have surrendered unto me, I give them the knowledge. So a devotee also will gain the same knowledge of the absolute truth, where the devotee will realize that I and God are one, essentially. In that experience of oneness, the ego has collapsed. That is the nature of eternal peace. So one way to drop the ego is, when I love intensely the Lord, I can completely surrender. Other way is to inquire. Inquire into who am I really. This body, mind, intellect is inert equipment. Am I really this? This is just a role that I am playing as a father, as a mother, as a son, as an employer, as a friend. These are all roles I am playing. Who am I actually? When I start inquiring into that aspect, that who am I, what is that which enlivens this body, mind, intellect? Like the bulb is there and the electricity is there. Is the light coming because of the bulb? Bulb is only a equipment. It is the electricity because of which the light comes. So what is that because of which the eyes can see? Gurudev always used to say that, if the eyes could see by themselves, everybody would keep one eye on somebody else. What is my spouse doing? Keep one eye. Because eye can see on itself. Eye can't see by itself. Ear can't hear by itself. If they could hear and see by themselves, a dead body could also see and hear. And what is that life which enlivens? Because of which that person is alive. Because of which the mind functions, because of which the intellect thinks. That's the question in the Upanishad, Kena Upanishad. That prompted by what does the mind function? The pranas function, the senses function. What is that spark of truth, that consciousness? So when I start inquiring into it, inquiry is such a thing that the ego will not bear inquiry. It disappears. The moment there is inquiry happens, ego disappears. Because that ego is created as a fictitious entity. Because there is an attachment to the body, mind, intellect, the ego is created. Is there an ego in the deep sleep? No ego in deep sleep. In dream I have an ego, in waking I have an ego. So that absolute truth, when it identifies with the body, mind, intellect, appears to be the finite. And the example given in Vedanta is, there is sun which is up, reflects in a bucket of water. Now that reflection of the sun will be appearing as limited to the size of the bucket. So the sun is huge, but the water in which it is reflecting and the bucket in which it is reflecting is very small. And yet that huge sun appears to have got conditioned by that limited bucket. limited water. In the same way, absolute truth is my nature. Reflecting in this body, mind, intellect, it appears to be limited. All that has to be done is drop that limitation to realize that I am that absolute truth, I am not this. That process of dropping this false identification through listening, reflecting, contemplating, that is a path of Gyan. That I listen to the absolute truth, that how I am not this body, how I am that Satchidananda Atma. Naturally there will be a lot of doubts. So we have regular classes happening, so that today if you are inspired, you are listening to it. Many of you may be knowing it first time, many of you may already know it. Now when you listen to it that I am not this, I am that, there will be doubts. How can I not be this? So then reflection has to happen. More and more thinking using logic and experience. So we have many classes every week. One class is happening on Monday here in Juhu, in Silver Beach Apartments. Nidhi Chaitanya ji, she takes the class. So you can attend those, reflect, think logically, deeper clarity you will get. And then when you are convinced intellectually that yes, I am not this, this is only a role that I am playing, automatically Nididhyasan will happen, where you contemplate on the truth using some pointers. One of the very famous ones is Nirvana Shatkam. Mano buddhi hankara chittani naham nacha shrotra jihve nacha ghrana netre nacha vyoma bhumir na tejo na vayu chidananda rupa shivoham shivoham. That I am not this, I am not this, I am not this. I am not the five elements, I am not the body, I am not the ego, I am not the mind. Then who am I? Chidananda Rupa Shivoham. I am that pure consciousness, which as of now is enlivening this body, mind, intellect, and so it appears as though this body, mind, intellect is alive on its own, but it is not. So that Vivek, when it is done, clarity is there, then Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan. Through that, the knowledge of the self arises, and a person who gets the knowledge of the self has become free. So ego surrenders either through devotion and love, or through inquiry. You can learn to drop the ego in the right knowledge. Both of them are one and the same. A devotee also gets the knowledge of the self. A person who is contemplating also will get the knowledge of the self. And so to know that absolute peace, I have to know the absolute self. And the path to know the absolute self is Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. And what are we doing through these three paths? We are dropping these three things: desires, attachments, and ego. A person who drops these, especially in the seat of contemplation, you drop all the three, absolute peace is what we attain. So this is where we stop for today, and we will spend about last 10 minutes in doing some contemplation on the self. All of us can sit erect. The head, the neck, and the spine in a straight line. Close your eyes gently. Be aware of your posture. From the head to the toes, visualize yourself in whichever posture you are. as though you have risen above yourself and you are watching yourself. Be aware of your breath. Inhale slowly, steadily and deeply. Exhale slowly, steadily, completely. Each and every breath, inhale and exhale consciously. In the space between the two eyebrows or in your heart, visualize a circle of white light. Circle of white light in the space between the two eyebrows or in your heart. Invoke the form of your Ishtadevata, the Lord of your heart, if you have one, or just the white light is the representation of the truth. Visualize that you are in front of the beloved Lord of your heart or the truth. With all devotion, let us surrender to the Lord. You can repeat after me. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam. So I surrender to the Lord completely. The Lord alone is my refuge. May thy will be done, O Lord. May I know that I am only an instrument. You are the doer. By your grace, may I surrender myself, rising above desires, attachment and ego. May we all attain supreme peace by His grace. Visualize that you are prostrating in complete surrender in front of the Lord. In this state of complete surrender, one comes to realize that I am not this finite, limited individual. I am that absolute pure self, whose nature is peace. At all times, my nature is Shantam, absolute peace. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham, Shivoham. That pure consciousness, Chit, is my nature. Pure bliss, Anand, is my nature. And auspiciousness, Shiva, is my nature. Shivoham, 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 Sadaschinmayoham, Sada Satchidananda Rupa Shivoham, 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 Sada Chinmayoham. That pure consciousness, pure auspiciousness, pure bliss I am. Beyond the body, beyond the mind, beyond the intellect. Free from the ego, always peaceful. By grace of the Lord and our own efforts, may all of us come to realize the absolute peace through surrender or inquiry. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Rub your palms, place them on the face, and gently open your eyes.